Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, this is Margo. This is Sunday, December 18th, 2016. And I'm going to start a new series today. I was actually trying to decide which book to start on next with you. I know I'm in the middle of working on Essene messages, but I'm taking a break from that, and it was a toss-up between the book we're going to start on today or this other book by Velikovsky. So I think we're going to start with The Spike. This was a really interesting book that I read about 10 or 11 years ago. It has not gotten hardly any press. It's called The Spike, How Our Lives Are Being Transformed by Rapidly Advancing Technologies. It was written by Damien Broderick and copyrighted in 2000, I think. Let's see, 2001. He's a science fiction writer from Australia. He's living in Texas now, from the research I've done, but I'd love to interview him. If anyone knows how to get in touch with him, send him my website or tell him to contact me through YouTube or find my YouTube, Margo's Healing Corner. I would really love to interview him. He's a science fiction writer. He wrote this book as fiction, but it's really fact. And I think he wrote it as fiction so that he could extrapolate all of his theories on where technology is going. And when I read this book the first time, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. And the idea is that technology is growing so fast at an exponential rate that eventually we will reach a point where machines kind of take over. There will be artificial intelligence. There will be humans uploading to machines. All this stuff. And when we reach that point, that's called the spike. And he thought when he wrote this book from his research that the book was published in 2001 that we would reach the spike around 2030 to 2050, but I think we've already reached it. He was saying or sooner. I mean, those were conservative estimates in his range. I think we've hit it. And especially with all the stuff that's come out with the secret space programs and all the stuff that's been in the underground and the black ops and everything, coming out with DARPA and all the nanobots that are in the chemtrails and how they're already transforming us and GMOing our whole creation right in front of us. I mean, it's happening. We're witnessing it. And, the problem, the one reason that everyone is in such disarray is because we don't know what to expect. We don't know what to expect because everything is going so fast. We've got the internet. We can't keep up with what's going on, and we are on the brink of human extinction. I truly believe that. I think Guy McPherson is totally right on when he says we might have a decade left. We might not have nearly that long left, especially if we have power grids go down and nuclear power plants blowing up and everything because they can't be cooled. So anyway, this is why there's, a lot of people feel, this impending doom and this impending chaos and everything. And a lot of it has to do with how fast our world is changing and what to do and how to recognize the changes. And it's literally snuck up on us in so many ways. I remember several years ago, I first heard about nanobots when I was working for a geologist, and I was reading through one of his magazines, and we were talking about nanobots in mining and building these little tiny, teensy-weensy machines that were nanobot size in the mining industry. And that's absolutely the first time I heard of it. It blew my mind. Where has this been? Where has this been? And now it's all coming up. Everyone's talking nanobots, nano this, nano that. And, more gallons, I'm thinking, is because of nanobots that have been come down in the air from the chemtrails, or it's in the water or something. And our bodies are rejecting the machines that are being made in them. More gallons could be a failed experiment. And the people who are not rejecting the things, it might not be failed. They might be part of the experiment and part of the mind control takeover. I don't know. And anyway, I found this book so interesting. I purchased the ebook version of it today, so I have it on my computer. The Spike, it really blew my mind. And so I may read the whole thing. I may read just parts of it. It's about 200 pages long, but I want to go ahead and get started with it. And this is called The Spike by Damien Broderick. And it'll blow your mind. This will blow your mind. The Spike, How Our Lives Are Being Transformed by Rapidly Advancing Technologies. He's a futurist, by the way. And the thing is, with all of these technologies, they have totally left spirituality and God out of the equation. They've totally left it out. And so this is why I think that all this technology takeover has been orchestrated by Satan, by the satanic mind. Now, we could use, if these technologies were going to be used for good, if they were going to be used so that we could all have free energy, that'd be great, but that's not happening. If they were going to be used so that we could heal ourselves, be healed and not have any more disease or anything, that'd be great. I don't see that happening. And if it is happening, it's not happening for the common folk like you and me. It's going to be reserved for the elite and, the ones with the money. The ones with the money. And that's what we're talking about, the big global takeover. And it took over a long time ago, and now it's just coming out. And there's Satanists. They are trying to capture us. They're trying to capture our minds, mind control us, and capture our souls. And, it's really dark. It's really dark. But the more we know about how this technology works and where it might be coming in, the more we can have a heads up and the more we can see the truth. And I'm all about seeing the truth and finding the truth. And by the way, just because you find out some more truth or you're a little more enlightened does not mean you're going to have a happier life. You might be more depressed. You know, you might be more depressed if you're really aware of how awful things are. But I would rather know the truth than to be mind controlled and to just be, dancing around going la la la, everything's fine. Everything's not fine. And I think the only way out is spiritually. But anyway, let's get on with this book. I'm anxious to start sharing it with you. He dedicated this book to Werner Vinge and Hans Moravec. These were both futurists. He says, who galloped ahead of the spiked slope to fetch back the strange news. That's the dedication. Table of contents. The headlong rush of time. Most everything for free. Little things. Minting the spike. Climbing the slope. Uncoupling the flesh. The interim meaning of life. Earth is but a star. And then the summary, paths and timelines to the spike. And then he has an afterword and notes, suggesting reading, selected internet sites, and an index. And this book was heavily researched and heavily footnoted all the way through. I mean, it's an amazing work. It's really amazing. And I'm surprised it's not gotten more publicity than it has. And so this is why I want to bring it out. Chapter 1, The Headlong Rush of Time. And he starts with just some quotes by different people. And here's the first quote. If our world survives, the next great challenge to watch out for will come. You heard it here first. When the curves of research and development in artificial intelligence, molecular biology, and robotics all converge, oh boy, it will be amazing and unpredictable, and even the biggest of brass, let us devoutly hope, are going to be caught flat-footed. It is certainly something for all good Luddites to look forward to if, God willing, we should live so long. This was written, it was reviewed by the New York Times book review by Thomas Pynchon in 1984. So that's how long this book has been around. Next quote, within 30 years we will have the technological means to create superhuman intelligence. Shortly after, the human era will be ended. This was by Werner Vinge, NASA Vision 21, from a symposium in 1993. Okay, here we go. It rushes at you, the future. Usually we don't notice that. We're unaware of its gallop. Time might not be a rushing black wall coming at us from the future, but that's surely how it looks when you stare unflinchingly at the year 2050 and beyond, at the strange creatures on the near horizon of time, or our own grandchildren, or even ourselves, technologically preserved and enhanced. Call them transhumans or even posthumans. The initial transition into post-humanity for people intimately linked to specially designed computerized neural nets might not wait until 2050. It could happen earlier, 2040, 2030, maybe sooner, as Vinge predicted. There is no longer the deep, the inconceivably distant future. These are the dates when quite a few young adults today expect to be packing up their private possessions and leaving the office for the last time, headed for retirement. These are dates when today's babes in arms will be strong adults in the prime of life. Around 2050, or maybe even 2030, is when a technological singularity, as it's been termed, is expected to erupt. That, at any rate, is the considered opinion of a number of informed, if unusually adventurous scientists. Professor Vingay called this projected event, quote, the technological singularity, unquote, something of a mouthful. I call it the spike, an upward jab on the chart of change, of time of upheaval, unprecedented in human history. And, of course, it's a profoundly suspect suggestion. We've heard this sort of thing prophesied quite recently in literally apocalyptic religious revelations of millennial end time and rapture. That's not the kind of upheaval I'm describing. A number of perfectly rational, well-informed, and extremely smart scientists are anticipating a singularity, a barrier to confident anticipation of future technologies. I prefer the term spike because when you chart it on a graph, it looks like a spike. Its exponential curve resembles a spike on a graph of change over time. Here's a picture of it. I'm going to see if I can get a screenshot of this and put it in the video. As you see, the more the curve grows, the larger is each subsequent bound upward. It takes a long time to double the original value, but the same period again gets you 4 times farther up the curve, then 8 times, so that after just 10 doublings, you've risen 1,000 times as far, then 2,000, and on it goes. Note this. The time it takes to go from 1 to 2 and then from 2 to 4 is just the same period needed to take that mighty leap from 1,000 to 2,000. A short time later, we're talking a million-fold increase in a single step, and the very next step after that is 2 million-fold. And on this graph, it starts at zero at about the date, he says 1000 AD, or technology change. And then it starts barely going up at 1500, and then by the year 2000, it's going straight up. It curves up, starts curving up at about 1300 AD. And then it starts curving, and then it starts going up really fast towards the end of around 1950, and then it's like straight up once you hit around 2000, and that's why he calls it the spike. And then it's just straight off, up and off the chart. You don't even know where it's going. Okay, back to the book. History's slowly rising trajectory of progress over tens of thousands of years, having taken a swift turn upward in recent centuries and decades, quickly roars straight up sometime after 2030 and before 2100. That's the spike. Change in technology and medicine moves off the scale of standard measurements. It goes asymptotic, as a mathematician would say. An asymptote is a curve that bends more and more sharply until it is heading almost straight along one of the axes, in this case up the page into the future. So the curve of technological change is getting closer and closer to the utterly vertical in a shorter and shorter time. At the limit, which is reached quite quickly, disproving Zeno's ancient paradox about the tortoise beating Achilles as if it has a head start, the curve tends toward infinity. It rips toward the top of the graph and is never seen again. At the spike, we can confidently expect that some form of intelligence, human, silicone, or a blend of the two, will emerge at a post-human level. At that point, all the standard rules and cultural projections go into the wastepaper basket. And they're already talking about silicone, blending human with silicone. That's already being done, by the way. That's already being done. So, this is off the charts, folks. We're in the spike. We hit it. And DARPA probably hit it, a couple of decades ago, or maybe before that. I don't know. Continuing. A quick preliminary stroll through the future. Everything you think you know about the future is wrong. How can that be? Back in the 1970s, man, that seems like a long time ago. I was in high school. Alvin Toffler warned of a future shock, the concussion we feel when change slaps us in the back of the head. But aren't we smarter now in the 21st century? We have wild, ambitious expectations of the future. We're not frightened of it. How could it surprise us now that Star Trek and Star Wars and Terminator movies and The Matrix and 100 computer role-playing games have domesticated the 24th century, cyberspace virtual realities, and a galaxy far, far away? Actually, I blame glitzy mass-market science fiction scriptwriters for misleading us. They got it so wrong. Their enjoyable futures, by and large, are about as plausible as 19th century visions of tomorrow. Those had dirigibles filling the skies and bonneted ladies in crinolines tapping at telegraphs. Back in the middle of the 20th century, when the futuristic stories I read as a kid were being written, most people knew that Buck Rogers stuff was laughable fantasy, suitable only for children. After all, it talked about atomic power and landing on the moon and time travel and robots that would do your bidding, even if you were rude to them. Who could take such nonsense seriously? 20 years later, men had walked on the moon. Nuclear power was already obsolete in some countries, and computers could be found in any university. Another 2 decades on, in the 90s, probes sent us vivid images from the solar system's far reaches and got lost on Mars. Immensely powerful but affordable personal computers sat on desks at home as well as at work. The human genome was being sequenced, and advanced physics told us that even time travel through space-time wormholes was not necessarily insane, although it was surely not in the immediate offering. So popular entertainment belatedly got the message, spurred on by prodigious advances in computerized graphics. Sadly, the movie, television, and game makers still didn't know a quart from a kumquat. A light year, a unit of interstellar distance, from a picosecond, a very brief time interval. With gusto and cascades of light, they blended made-up technobabble with exhilarating fairy stories, shifting adventure sagas from ancient legends and myth into outer space. It was great fun, but it twisted our sense of the future away from an almost inconceivably strange reality, which is the way it will actually happen, and back into safe childhood, that endless temptation of fantastic art. Maybe you think I'm about to get all preachy and sanctimonious. You're waiting for the doom and gloom, rising seas and greenhouse nightmare, cloned tyrants, population bomb, monster global megacorporations with their evil genetically engineered foods, and monopoly stranglehold on the crop seeds needed by a starving third world. Wrong. Some of those factors indeed threaten the security of our planet. Yeah, it threatens all of it. All of it threatens it. But not for much longer, unless things go very bad indeed very quickly. No, what's wrong with most media images of the future isn't their evasion of such threats. On the contrary, they play them up to the point of absurdity. What's wrong is their laughably timid conservatism. The future is going to be a fast, wild ride into strangeness, and many of us will still be there as it happens. That strangeness is exactly what prevents us from picking out any one clear, determinate future. The coming world of the spike is strictly unimaginable, but we can certainly try our best to trace some of the contributing factors and some of the ways they'll converge or perhaps block each other. That fact governs my approach in this book. Do not expect a dogmatic manifesto advancing a single thesis. Instead, I'll try to give you a glimpse of many different technologies. I won't attempt the impossible, which is to integrate all those different points of view into one comforting, assured framework. There is no inevitable tomorrow. All that we know for sure is the almost unstoppable acceleration of science and technology and the drastic impact it will have upon humanity and our world. That might be a good stopping place. I'm at the end of the section. I'm going to stop there. So this is part one of my next series. We're going to be talking all about the future, technology, how it's affecting us, good and bad, what to expect, and, we're racing right into it. We're racing right into it, headlong into the abyss, it looks like. So, anyway, that's my show for today. I'm Margo. My website is margoshealingcorner.com. I'm a hypnotist, holistic life coach, spiritual healer. I just recently became a certified mind-body fitness coach. I have a YouTube channel at Margo's Healing Corner. I really think the only way out is spiritually. We've got to get right with God. We've got to heal up any leftover relationships. We've got to wrap things up. I think we're running out of time. Rapidly running out of time. And you will see this as we go on in the spike and how our lives are changing so drastically with technology. It's taking over, and Richard Sauter, who I've interviewed several times, he calls it the machine, and how it's part of this dark presence, this AI mind ruling the planet. I call it Satan. Let's just make it real simple. Let's make it real simple and call it what it is. It's dark, and it's not here for our own good. It's here to destroy us. So, anyway, that's my show for today. If you'd like to contact me, go to my website, margoshealingcorner.com. I work with people removing implants of all kinds, energetic. Also help them heal up the energetic bodies and get them reconnected with their divine connection, get them unblocked, so that they can get back in touch with what's important. What's important is who we are spiritually, who we are, how we can live out our lives with dignity, and pray for forgiveness for all of the stuff we've done to the planet, how we've killed Mother Earth, we've killed creation. We played into it. We've been manipulated by Satan to kill God's most beautiful of all creation, which was this whole symbiotic creation of Mother Earth and all the living organisms here. It was God's beautiful creation. We were at one time part of that very loving creation where we could be healed by Mother Earth. But we sold out. We were manipulated. We were manipulated by Satan. So, time is short, folks. Time to get right with God. Let's pray for world peace and for the leaders to have clarity of mind and to not go off half-cocked about anything. We don't need a nuclear war. And tomorrow is the big electoral college meeting and voting. And I did a show about that and about the astrology aspects that are really bad for that. Mercury retrograde goes tomorrow early in the morning. So the vote could be overturned. There could be riots. There could be martial law. Could be a whole lot of stuff. We just don't know. But let's stay calm and stay focused and seek to know the truth, whatever it is. Thank you for listening. Be calm and go in peace. God bless. Until next time, goodbye.